welcome to another episode of the Lei'd Back Life podcast. We're talking about how to love life, entrepreneurship, and improve daily. I'm your host, Jordan Ostroff, and joining me today is also Jordan Ostroff. Today's episode's a little bit different. We don't have a guest this week because I want to talk about time audits. This is the thing that comes up the most when I'm meeting with clients, because once we get the first batch of obvious problems solved, we need to figure out how to focus, and usually that comes down to doing a time audit. So I wanted to talk about those things together, because let's be honest, what do Batman, Iron Man, and overworked business owners all have in common? None of them should be doing their own bookkeeping. So I think that time is the most important thing in life. We all have 168 hours a week. Obviously, we use them differently. If you have the financial resources to buy a bunch of help, you can focus your time a lot more. I understand that. But the reality is, no matter what we do, we can't get more time. Some of us don't live 23-hour days versus 24 or 25-hour days. So it has to come down to, what are we actually doing with our time? And then how do we want to change it? Anytime people talk about wanting to add things to their plate, they want to start going to the gym, they want to start going for walks, they want to take time to cook and eat healthier, they want to learn a new skill, I always come back to this. When are you going to do it? Or more specifically, what are you going to take off of your current plate, out of your current life, so that you have the time to do these things? Because at the end of the day, we are human beings. We are what we do. We are human doings. And if we're going to change, we need to have the time to change. So we need to get things off of our plate, and that comes back to our time audit. What is a time audit? A time audit is this document. And don't worry, if you're listening to this podcast, it's okay. If you're watching, I have it here. But if you're listening to it, it's an Excel spreadsheet. At the end of the day, it's an Excel spreadsheet. It does the 24 hours a day. So 12 to 12, sometimes it's an hour block, sometimes it's 30 minutes, sometimes it's 15. And it goes on for 2 weeks, Monday through Sunday, twice. Why 2 weeks? Because never in the history of time have any of my clients been able to honestly admit to me they had a normal 2 weeks. And I am not casting blames on anybody else. Every time I do my own time audit, I never have a normal 2 weeks. There's always something that comes up. So it is a long enough amount of time to have life get in the way, but a short enough amount of time to be that specific about it. After the event, we then have 2 more sections. Did it give us energy or drain our energy? So -5 sucked our energy, +5 gave us a ton of energy. And then how delegatable is it? A 1 meaning there is no way we could delegate it. It's too complicated. It's too expensive. It has to be us. 10 being it's something that would be really easy to hand to somebody else who's already on the team ASAP with no training. And then you go in between those things. So somebody's on the team, but they would need some training. It might be an 8 or a 9. Something that has no system or you have no people might be a 6 or a 7. So work your way back from that. It's not a hard and fast rule. A lot of this, your gut is going to give you the best information. So this is the time audit sheet. If any of you need it, we'll have it in the show notes. I'm happy to send it to you. It's an Excel spreadsheet. There are plenty of programs that you can use to do this. It'll track your time on the computer. It'll go through these things. And honestly, when I do my own time audit, I do audio notes in my phone, and then I have my EA transcribe them. So we have this sheet to give you the structure. I'm not telling you need to be married to the sheet, but ultimately, this is our time audit. And I want to be clear, you do not need to do all 2 weeks. What comes up the most is I will assign it to my clients, because we've got about 2 weeks in between our meetings. I'll tell them to time audit starting now to our next meeting. And then maybe 1/3 to slightly less than half the time, I will get an email from my client 3 or 4 days later that says, Jordan, I am now so aware of all these simple things that I am doing that could easily be done by somebody else. Do I need to continue the time audit? And I will tell them no. At the end of the day, a time audit is a opportunity for you to gain some information to allow you to have a better vision or plan about what you're going to do differently moving forward. So if you get that moment of clarity ASAP, you can stop your time audit and instead spend the time making those changes. I would say, I at this point, I want 3 decent projects out of my time audit. At the beginning, there'll be so many that you want to limit yourself. So if 3 days in, you've got one or two obvious things, go ahead and stop right there and focus on those obvious things. Do not worry about going farther. I'd rather you spend the time to actually implement. That being said, most of the time you don't have the right staff for it, or everybody's already overworked or overwhelmed or whatnot, and you can't easily pass it on to somebody else, and you're going to have to hire somebody. So last week we talked to Erin Anderson about culture and hiring for a great business and a better life. Reach out to her or somebody like her. It would be super helpful for everybody, because as we get through the time audit, we're going to talk about how we know what to get off of our plate. But at the end of the day, it usually needs to go to somebody else, or certainly something else. And if you're hiring, don't necessarily go hiring alone. Get some help. Spend the money to make the hiring go better, go faster, go easier, go cheaper. Sorry, not cheaper, go more effectively. And I guess ultimately maybe cheaper, because if you hire the wrong person and you spend several months with them and then you have to replace them because they weren't a good fit to begin with, that will actually cost you more money in the long run. So there you go. All right, so we have the time audit here. And at the point that you are done with your 2-week time audit, then we are going to reflect on the time audit. So ultimately, that's going to boil down to a series of questions. Am I the best at this task? Do I enjoy doing this task? Is it too complicated for me to delegate this task? Can I afford to delegate this task? So the last two, so the first two, am I the best? And do I enjoy doing it? Those are going to be under your energy category. The last two, too complicated and unaffordable, is going to be under the delegation ranking category. Between those questions, you are going to find things that check none of those boxes. You're not the best at doing it. You don't enjoy doing it. You can afford to have somebody else do it, and it's super simple. Those are the things I want you to take off your plate first. If it checks any of those boxes, it can stay on your plate until you start moving up the ladder. So by the time you are doing a time audit multiple times later, again, I would say we're going to do it probably every quarter. At this point, I want to keep things on my plate if I'm the best at them and I enjoy doing them and I can't afford to hire somebody for them and they are too complicated to delegate to somebody else. So right now at my level, I'm trying to check all those boxes. I guarantee you I'm failing. Don't get me wrong. I'm not perfect. I'm not a guru. But at the beginning, something that checks any of those boxes can stay on your plate. Now, I mentioned you can stop the time audit in the middle if you have those projects. If you do that, as soon as you finish those obvious projects, then I would go back and do a 2-week time audit, unless other obvious projects get on, come up to light, are easy to see from there. Ultimately, I want you to settle in doing this every quarter, because by the time that you are doing this consistently, it's not that simple to get more things off of your plate. So I need to give you those 3 months to have those projects, because it's going to take more time to generate more business, to hire better staff, to find the right staff, to create the better system, to make things easily passable or delegatable to somebody else. So I want you to get into that cycle. But at the beginning, you don't need to follow that cycle, because there are too many things that will be obvious to you when you first do this. If it's miserable, if you're terrible at it, if it costs you $10 or $12 an hour to get it off your plate tomorrow, congratulations. You just found your first delegation target. Now, if you're looking for more information on how to delegate and how to create systems, we've got our SOP that we sell on it. If you're interested, we can send that to you. Also, I talk about it a ton, the 7 steps to a system, recording yourself doing it, going through it, having somebody else do it, those kind of things. So I'm not terribly concerned about the delegation part right now, because we've talked about those. And like I said, if you need more help with that, we can provide more help. But what I'm most interested in you coming out of the time audit with is what to delegate, what to pass to somebody else. What are the things that you are going to stop doing? And to be fair, you might stop doing them by dropping them and just no longer doing them at all. You might stop doing them by automating them. You might stop doing them by outsourcing them. But for the most part, you're going to end up delegating them to somebody who works for you, part-time, contractor, something along those lines. So that's what we should have coming out of a time audit. Now, if we want some tips on doing a great time audit, be brutally honest, please. I don't want to see a time audit that has, 5 hours a week of intensive digital business development that really means you were scrolling Facebook, right? So the more honest you are going to be with yourself, the better information you're going to collect, the easier it's going to be to put this to work for you. Try to catch context switching. So if every time you stop one thing to start another and you're going back and forth, you're going to take up a ton of time. It takes up to 23 minutes for you to get back on task. That's why if you notice, we have our things by hour blocks, and then it goes to half hour, that goes to 15 minutes. You should not be doing a billion things in a 15-minute block because you're never going to get around to actually being able to focus. Use recurring blocks. So a good time audit, if you're like me and you live off your calendar, is going to include checking email at whatever it is, 9 o'clock, noon, 4 o'clock, something along those lines. It's going to include large chunks of deep work early in the morning. It's going to include recurring meetings, those things. You probably don't have a ton of recurring blocks now, but maybe you already sort of do. If you find yourself always doing lunch at 12 on your time audit for 2 weeks, great, then that's a block you put on your calendar. If you find yourself always checking email first thing in the day, great, that might become a block you put on your calendar now, so you get in the habit of doing those things. You start doing them habitually. Flag the surprises when things take way longer or way shorter than you expected. Make sure you mark that. That becomes super helpful. I would assume things that take way shorter probably gave you energy. Things that take way longer probably suck more energy because we operate mostly off of expectations, but maybe that's incorrect for you. So keep a note of that. Add quick notes for some of the tasks. If they're more serious tasks, if they're longer tasks, put in a note about why they're important, why you did them, why they took so long. That'll help you later when you come back to this. The other thing, interruptions. I would love to take a time audit and then overlay it with a calendar to see if you did what you were supposed to do. Probably not worth it at the beginning, but as you get further down the process, that becomes something to start seeing where you get interrupted and when you get interrupted. Because the other thing I want you to do is look for patterns. There are certain days or times of day that you will naturally have more energy and they will naturally give you less energy. Or there's times of day where more people will interrupt you consistently, or other things will get in the way. So by having this time audit laid out, and if you notice in it, it takes the same time horizontally across the path, because if we find out that every day at 2 o'clock you are doing things that drain your energy, it may not be all those things. It might just be the time of day. It might be a situation where you need to eat something healthier or have a snack or something along those lines to give you more long energy to get through those. And so that's why you may be interrupted more. That's why you may have less energy. Tracking those patterns becomes huge. And last but not least, don't overthink it. This is not a law review article. This is not a long-term white paper. This is not even any sort of marketing strategy. It's something designed to help you collect information about what you're doing and make changes to it going forward. So be honest and don't overthink it. Put things on there as real as they are, as best as you can, so that you can actually take this information and run with it. We're going to talk about what to do afterwards in a moment. If you're watching this as soon as it comes out, that's on a Tuesday. This Friday, our newsletter is the hidden ROI of office culture. So it was great to have that as the conversation after Aaron's presentation about building a better culture. This is going to be the benefits of having a better culture. I wish I could tell you I lined that up that way. It just happened. It was not something that was intentional. It just worked out well. So the hidden ROI of office culture be this Friday's newsletter. So what do we do after our time audit? There are 3 moves, right? 1, we're going to fill the time that we got out of our plate with making more money so we can afford more help, better help, bringing in experts like coaches for people to help us design systems. 2, we're going to spend some of that time building systems and processes for the more complicated things to pass them on to somebody, or building the automation to handle the system, or meeting with the right vendors or outsourcers to get this resolved. And 3, we're going to find the right people to take on the task that we are not the best at, that's drain our energy. We're going to look for the people who are the best at it and who it does provide them the most energy. So I would say coming out of a time audit, after you've done it a couple of times, you're looking for 3 projects. It's not necessarily one for more money, one for new people, one for systems. It might work out that way, it might not, but those are the thought processes that I want to have, because you're going to take things off of your plate, but you want to fill that time with the highest value use of your opportunity, of your time, of your skill set, and then you're going to re-audit your time. So at this point, I write a lot more books and newsletters and review a lot more systems in my office than in the past, where I was the one who was writing a lot of the systems. So like, you'll work your way up the chain for a lot of these things, because now I have better help, or I have better systems to allow people to help me more to tweak the systems and change them moving forward, however it breaks down. What are we looking for coming out of a great time audit and ultimately having a good life on the week to weeks? Not having decision fatigue. So, there's a whole famous study in Israel about judges that gave less chances for parole heading into lunch, and then it tears down from there. It pops up, they give parole again, and then it goes back down. You might be doing that. Now, obviously, I hope you're not making parole decisions or sentencing or something along those lines. And if you are, please keep your blood sugar where it's supposed to be. But you might notice decision fatigue for you. That's why a lot of things, famous writers, huge, well-known business owners talk about doing deep work first thing in the morning, taking their maximum amount of time and their maximum focus and the time that they will use the best for that, and then having meetings being later in the day where we don't need to be 100% for a meeting. Writing a 5% better book could be the difference between success and failure. Having a 5% better meeting might not make any difference. So considering that, we're thinking about energy cycles, Mario needing to upgrade with some mushrooms, Iron Man needing to recharge the arc reactor. Like, do you have times in the day where you go through an energy cycle down, and is that impacting you? Or is it just decision fatigue? What are some of those issues? And then ultimately, we're looking for delegation models. So having systems and processes, having automation, having people you can trust to pass the stuff to, that's what's going to be the most helpful. All right, that being said, next week we've got Neil Goldstein coming on. Actually was just on Neil's podcast. Neil's awesome. Just another person in the space, out of New York, coming out of Big Law, with a very similar perspective on, we need to do things a better way. We need to be better to ourselves and each other. Super excited to have Neil on the podcast next week. That being said, I want to close out this episode on time audits with a small series of takeaways. So to recap, we want to audit our time for usually 2 weeks, although if it's obvious, it's obvious. We want to identify the worst uses of our time. We want to delegate those things, or automate those things, or drop those things, or outsource those things. Then we're going to fill our time with the highest value, things that make us more money, things that give us more energy, things that allow us to create better systems, delegate more things, and then we want to repeat it every 3 months on the cycle. That being said, the best thing you can do after this episode is start auditing your time right now. It is amazing what you will uncover if you spend a little bit of intentionality. And if that means downloading a program to automatically do it, if it's having your EA look at your calendar and having you just write in what changed, if that's you doing video notes, voice notes into your phone, like I do, whatever it takes, I highly suggest it, because every one of my clients I've done it for has benefited from it, and we've done it with almost every single client. So take the free advice, please, please, please. If you're looking to make a change in your life, audit your time to figure out what you can take out before you start putting more things in and trying to cram them in. So that being said, we'll see you back here next week for Neil's episode. I hope you love this Friday's newsletter about the hidden ROI of office culture. And in the meantime, the more intentional you get, the better it will be. And usually it starts with a time audit. So have a great day. We'll see you back here next week.